Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Motherdrive. We are back and in the car, per usual. I'm your host, Katie Matthews, and as you know, I record this podcast from the car because, as a mom, that's where I spend my time. So today we have a guest who is a very special guest. Her name is Jamie Copeland. Jamie is a mom of 5, and she owns a company that is called StrategicU, and it is an amazing community that she has built, and it just launched and went online today, so you can get your membership now. This community is an amazing hub. It's equipped with experts that would be at your fingertips to guide and support you if you are a parent of a child with ADHD, or if you're someone with ADHD yourself as an adult. It also works for those who are close to someone with ADHD and need a support system to lean into. So this hub is for you if you are involved or, have a relationship with someone with ADHD. So Jamie, we are so happy to have you here with us today. Let's get started.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, I'm so excited for you to be here. So can you share your personal journey and how you became an ADHD expert and, just what led you down this path?
Absolutely. So my background is actually in psychology and as well as training and development. Oddly enough, I got my psychology degree, and then I was like, I'm not sure that I want to use that. I'm not sure that I want to go that route. I was a stay-at-home mom for 15 years and just had my kids as my passion. However, one of my children was diagnosed when he was 5 years old with ADHD, and I ended up using my psychology degree with
you never anticipated.
Not in a way I anticipated, no. And my middle daughter was just diagnosed as well with ADHD, and my youngest son is highly sensitive. So, however, my journey really started with my son. He's 15 now. He'll be 16 here very soon. And I just got to a point where I felt so frustrated with the system, frustrated as a mom, frustrated with okay, I am doing all the right things. I'm taking you to therapy. I'm working with the school. I'm doing this and this and this. However, there was a gap. And the gap was that I was left behind as his mom in what to do at home with him to help him. In therapy, they're doing all of their things together, and they talked to me a little bit, but it just wasn't enough to say, okay, these are the tools you can use at home that we're working on with him to help him and all of that. And I'm sure there are some wonderful therapists out there that do that. So I'm not knocking therapy in any way. Just that was the gap for me. And I was like, I want to fill this gap. And I just one day was like, okay, I'm going to start working this, and started out with a summit. And we do have an app coming out this summer as well. And we're filling that gap where parents can come in and get all the expert advice, as well as one of the main things that I started to notice was that majority of the people were working on behavioral disorders. Everything was about behavior. And yes, that is very much a part of ADHD. However, when that was focused on the most with my son, he started to feel there's something wrong with him. He's got an issue. Everything is, negative, negative, negative. That's how he was kind of viewing it. And I was like, but you're brilliant and you have so many strengths. And that was another gap that I saw that I was like, this needs to be filled, because kids with ADHD will hear, I think it's 10,000 words by the time that they're 10 years old that are negative towards them. And we know that ADHD brains will automatically go towards the negative. It's just something within their brains that they focus on the most. So I started focusing on the strengths with him, and I was like, I need to bring this to more parents to where they can understand what the strengths are within their child's ADHD brain. So I started to work with many different experts with StrategicU, and we've just together we came up with this hub to help fill all those gaps.
I love that you were doing this, and I love that you brought up the conversation about the negativity. And the thing that is so interesting about that is like what we hear and all of those negative criticisms that ADHD people, because I myself have ADHD, so I can really fully appreciate that. By the time that you reach, like you said, like maybe 10, 12, and all of these, things have been the focus, right? These negative things have been the focus. That becomes the voice in your head, right? Like it becomes your inner dialogue. And that is like not a great, platform to build on in terms of the rest of your life emotionally, right? So I love that you decided to build bridges, not walls here. You didn't attack the system. You weren't like, oh, you guys are doing things wrong. You just said, no, I recognize there's a gap and I'm going to build a bridge. And that is a really beautiful thing. So how do you think like being a mom has influenced your coaching philosophy for ADHD?
Yeah. So my kids are my world. I have 5. And like I said, I've been a stay-at-home mom. So they were my biggest focus. And of course, my youngest daughter, she's only 8. So I haven't really walked the journey with her as long as I have my son. But seeing him, I remember a moment where I just saw him just feel so beat down by the school system. And I'm not saying it's their fault at all, but that's just where he was. And that's the honest truth. He gave up on himself. He did. He gave up on school. He gave up on, well, I guess I'm just this kid that's a bad kid. So I'm just going to start acting this way. And as a mom, we know our kids' hearts. We know who they are. And that wasn't my son. My son is so sweet. He's so kind. He's so just compassionate towards people. And he was losing himself, and I couldn't bear to see it. So just as a mom, it's something that I was passionate about, like, okay, if this is my kid, how many more are going through this same thing? And that's just been something that has really impacted my coaching, impacted my way of being towards, helping other mamas. And most importantly, I just didn't want another parent to feel alone again. I felt that way. I felt very alone in this process. And what do I do? Where's my place in this? And I don't ever want a parent to feel that way.
That's really beautiful. When we think about like the system, like what are some common misconceptions in the system that you've had to combat about ADHD?
So I'd say the biggest one is that they are taught that it's a behavioral disorder rather than being taught that it's a neurological difference. So it's a different wiring of the brain. So that means that their behavior is going to look different than what it looks like for someone with neurotypical brain, with a neurotypical brain. And what we get to really look at with these kids is they aren't purposely misbehaving, in what the world views as a misbehaving way. So one of my examples I like to give is I will never forget Gavin getting ISS in school suspension because his teacher she was just livid with him. And I mean, I understand her point, but at the same time, I'm like, you really need to understand how an ADHD brain works. So she said, Gavin, hey, would you please go pour out this bucket of water for me in the sink? Well, normally someone's going to be like, oh, yeah, sure. Okay, this is a really full bucket. Let me pour this slowly and pour it, into the sink. Well, Gavin says, let me pour this bucket of water into the sink and he pours it in the sink, right? Because it's an immediate one thing after another with an ADHD brain. I'm asked, I act. I'm asked, I act. And the teacher took that as, and it, of course, it spilled everywhere. It got all over her. She was soaked. She was mad. And I understand her point. But
Yeah.
he's sitting here like, what did I do? I don't understand. You asked me to pour out this bucket of water. I did that. I didn't mean for it to go everywhere, and it's a fact of like, you really get to break down sometimes, certain situations. Not that they're stupid by any means. It's just, it's an immediate like act, that's a part of impulse control in ADHD. And having to explain to teachers and to administrators as well, like, the brain works very differently in the sense of like, it's just an immediate reaction that they'll have, and they don't think about the scenarios that are going to happen. It's just, let me act.
So there's also the point, it's like, let me act now, because if I don't act now, then I'm not going to remember to do this, or I'll get distracted, and that's it. I want to do what the teacher tells me to do now. Right?
Yeah.
And because they're worried about getting in trouble again, like in another way, right? And so it's like, let me get this done now. Let me do it as quickly and efficiently as possible. And let me not get in trouble.
And then he ends up
right. Well, that's it, right? And then they get upset, like you said, in this whole thing, narrative in their brain is like, well, I can't win no matter what I do.
Exactly. And that's
so I might as well just do the bad things.
And that right there is exactly the point. It's like, and then they get to that point where they're just like, well, I guess I'm this bad kid, so I might as well just act out that way. And as a mom, you're just like, oh, no, like that is not happening. So, that we get to take action as parents, but we're also tired. Mom, we're so tired, and we're just like, what do we do? And that's where we need to have a system where everybody can come together and really work with each other as like a dream team, the therapists, the teachers, the administrators, the parents, all together. So stay tuned, because we are coming up with something like for that, for parents. But to start with, we just thought, this hub is going to be so magical for so many to really understand, one, what ADHD really is, how the brain really works, but also like in the moment, how to act and how to do things, to really help your kids to strengthen their minds. So
that's right. And strengthen their narrative about themselves. It's good.
Yes.
That's a really critical thing. So my question to you, I'd like to shift over a little bit to moms. Okay. So you've got moms regularly parenting a child with ADHD, but then you've also got moms with ADHD parenting a child with ADHD. So what would you say to the moms with ADHD parenting their child with ADHD versus the moms who don't have ADHD parenting their child with ADHD?
Well, for all moms, you get to give yourself grace. So,
for sure.
None of us are perfect. None of us are perfect. Not even me. I am not a perfect mom. I have my moments. Don't get me wrong. However, when it comes to the mom who does have ADHD parenting their child with ADHD, I actually would say one thing. I know that you understand your child a heck of a lot better than majority of the other people out there that don't have ADHD. So trust your gut instinct with that, because that is something you can help them more than anybody can on how to actually really use their strengths and build on that, because you've been through it, you've walked the walk. So really trust your gut. There's so many voices out there when it comes to how to parent, how to do, X, Y, and Z. And I'm actually a big proponent of, don't listen to everything you hear, listen to it, feel it. Is that right for my child? Is that right for our family? And then either act on it or say, okay, I've got to let that one go, because that's not what's going to be right. Because then you can put yourself into confusion often when it comes to those things. And so trust your guts. know that you're actually the perfect parent for them. We're all the perfect parent for our children. They were given to us for a reason. And go with that. And then for the mom that does not have ADHD, which would be me, with my child who does have ADHD, my husband, he hasn't been diagnosed, but I am 99% sure that he does have ADHD. He'll readily admit to it. I'm not talking bad about him. But I would say the one piece of advice I could give you that has really helped me and served me well when it's come to my son is I get to take my emotion out. And that's for really any mom.
Yeah.
But my emotion can, of course, come in because you have the worry pieces. You have the, well, what if scenarios that go through your mind, right? And yes, we get to talk to our children about it, but we get to come at it in a neutral playground, right? So when we take our emotions out of it, we come at it in a neutral way. Our children end up feeling, especially teenagers, right? Respected and heard. And that's one thing that I did have to learn that the hard way after many, many conversations with him, but I had to listen to him. I had to really listen to him and respect the young man he was becoming and say, okay, I get to take my emotions out. I get to ask him questions that are non-confrontive, and I get to get his feedback on that. But then also when it comes to situations like he makes a bad decision, like yesterday, I'll be very frank. I had a neighbor come up to me saying, you probably don't want to hear this, but your son went and opened a car door and then he shut it right away, but that could be troublesome. And it absolutely can. And in his mind, he's like, I don't know. I just did it. It was not something I was thinking about, right?
Because the impulsivity, it's that impulsivity that they just do whatever is on their mind. And there's no like real pathway to like, this is the thought process for this. And it's just quick and they fly through and they don't think about impact of things or circumstances, outcomes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So in that moment, I'm like, okay, I get to run those scenarios through my brain, but I do that. And then I run him through them as well of like, all right, I'm really glad the neighbor came to me, and told me about this because otherwise I probably wouldn't have figured it out. And now we get to look at this and say, this is what can happen from there. Someone could think you're breaking into it. Someone could think, all of these things. And I get that you were just doing it. You just opened and shut it. He's like, I didn't do anything. And it's like, you're touching someone else's property. That can be, but exactly like those impulse things that you're just like, kid, what are you thinking? Like,
why?
Yes. But we get to kind of come down and say, all right, let's talk through this. Yes, I'm upset.
Here's the reasons why we can I totally get that. And kids in general do all kinds of stuff because they don't have an awareness of like life experience and stuff. So they're testing all kinds of things out and figuring out outcomes. And so with ADHD, it's just, there's a little bit more of an aggressive impulse scenario that's getting played out, which can be a little bit more dangerous. And also sometimes it's just the dopamine hit that they're seeking, right? Like from that. And they view this as a harmless way to like sort of achieve that, right?
And he was showing off in front of his friends.
99%. Right. Yes, 100%. Yeah. And this all happened to us, right?
Yes.
At one point or another, we were showing off to get approval.
It's true. Sorry, go ahead.
No, you go ahead. Finish what you were saying.
Well, I was going to speak a little bit on that dopamine hit, piece. So there are really powerful ways that you can help your kid to actually get that dopamine hit. Video games, I'm not a huge proponent of, but I do know that those do help. Just, make sure to really time them out. And if you do choose to allow them to do video games, you really need to have those conversations beforehand of what their time frame is and give them warnings. However, you can do like the sports, for instance, like that's a huge thing for kids with ADHD. They need to be in sports because their brain literally needs those chemicals to help it actually function and take off the way it's supposed to. So I like to explain an ADHD brain in this way. With a neurotypical brain, a normal brain, you'll have one side fire and the other side fire, right? And they'll do it in conjunction with each other the way they're supposed to.
So like a synergy.
Yes. However, with an ADHD neurodivergent brain, it's all firing at the same time. There is no like back and forth. Let me think about these scenarios. No, it's all just firing all at once and it's just boom, you know? So when you allow them to have, you know, the sports and activities, it really gives them those chemicals that they need to help them to really help the brain to fire back and forth the way it's supposed to. Whether you choose to medicate or not as well, that is completely up to the parent. I did not medicate Gavin at first. I did choose to medicate him once he got into middle school. That is a hard choice to make as a parent and completely up to you. There's many ways you can do it. But that would be a huge piece of advice that I would give parents is to have them into some sort of sport where they are just getting out there and getting it. Because
I wholeheartedly agree with that. My son plays multitude of sports. He literally, and we find that he's a much better version of himself when he is active because he's achieving, you know, getting that energy out, getting the ants in the pants out, like just really moving around. And he thrives when he could get out there and get those endorphins running. It helps him feel better. It helps him feel good. He feels the social aspect of it as well. And he sleeps better, much better when he's playing sports, right? And doing activities. Yeah. And I mean, I know that there's different kinds of ADHD, right? Like there's the inattentive, there's the, you know, so like there's a process to understanding like which version is your child and which version are you as a parent, right? If you are a parent with ADHD, right? And so for me, as someone with ADHD, I have to be very mindful because I've noticed, and I don't know if you've noticed this as a mom, that like when ADHD mothers are with their kids, there's like more of an opportunity to sort of like fight, right? Because each person has some kind of like similar tendencies in certain ways. And for me, I chose not to medicate for my ADHD. And it has been challenging, you know, with motherhood, because we talk about the mother load, right? How do you, one of the biggest challenges of ADHD, and this is why children with ADHD have challenges with schools, because of the executive function piece and the organization and the remembering things. And it is tough. Sometimes you know, my partner has to grant me a lot of grace, you know, my husband and my children both, because I don't always remember everything and I do drop balls, but there's a release of that guilt to be like, okay, you know what, you're doing great in lots of other ways, but you know, you drop this ball and sometimes that just happens. And I'm doing an even better job now of trying to figure out systems that support my executive function. So my question to you would be, do you have recommendations for mothers with ADHD to support their well-being in terms of like a system or organization or things that you think would work or have seen work with your clientele and stuff like that, when it comes to executive function in their household as a mom, right? And then also the second part of that question is, how do you think ADHD mothers can help their ADHD children get organized?
That's the tough one right there.
Yeah. Because there's a certain amount of like forgetfulness and all that stuff that comes at that age, right? Like they're leaving things everywhere. Already. They're doing, you know,
ADHD or no ADHD, absolutely. They're already disorganized. So first part of the question is systems to help. One of my favorite authors out there actually for ADHD. It's Dr. Amelia Kelly, for women.
Well, I'm gonna write
Favorite
that
authors
down.
for women. Dr. Amelia Kelly just wrote a book. Actually, it just
Is it
came out.
Amelia or Emily? Sorry, I couldn't hear.
Amelia.
Okay,
Dr.
Amelia.
Amelia Kelly. And she talks about in her book the super mom syndrome portion, for moms with ADHD. And I just love how brilliantly she kind of lays out in that book what your gifts are and how to really focus in on those, and get that organizational piece together for yourself. So that would be my first recommendation.
Okay, so read that
her.
book. I got it.
Yes, and she's actually going to be on the hub as well. So
Oh, great.
Yes. But also, the book, I'm not sure if I said Powered by ADHD, for those out there listening, is the name of her book. And it's specifically one for women. So
amazing.
she's
I love that.
amazing. Yes. But as far as systems go, when it comes to being mom, the best advice I can give you is your calendar, your calendar, your calendar. Don't put everything needs to go in your calendar, whether you have a digital calendar or, just a regular old calendar on your wall. Put it all on your calendar. And if you're not there, you have a regular calendar. If you're not there, put a reminder in your phone to put it on your calendar. Another piece of advice I heard from another ADHD mom is she talks about Post-its. She'll put Post-its in different places to give her reminders of things, and that really, really helps her. There are many apps out there that help with ADHD. StrategicU will be one eventually. However, I am a proponent for any app that's going to help you to stay organized with your ADHD the best. And then give yourself grace. None of us are perfect. We all drop the ball in different places, and it's okay. It's going to be okay in the end, and we get to just come back in those moments. We get to own it up, and we just get to say, yep, I definitely dropped the ball there. I'm 100% responsible, and I'm going to do better in the future, or so, just whatever. It's okay. It's going to be okay. It's not the end of the world. When it comes to parenting your child and organizing them, here's the hard piece, especially if you have ADHD yourself. Number one, coming up with a system that actually works with your child is extremely hard. I've been down this road with Gavin multiple times, where I got to a point where I had to go through his backpack every single day when he got out of school to see what loose papers are possibly homework, what loose papers are, important for me to sign or do, because he'll forget to tell me. He doesn't love that now that he's a teenager, but I just get to come and say, well, hey, we've got to make sure that you're on the up and up, that you're doing what you're supposed to do. And it's not that you're not going to, it's just that we've seen, that sometimes you have a hard time, and I'm just here to help you. I'm here to support you, bud. I love you, stuff like that. Words that calm him. Whenever he gets in those because he has moments of just like high frustration, of just like, I can do it, mom, because he wants to be the adult,
Right.
Understand. And yes, you can do it. Let's just work with this piece here. We've tried many different systems to have him be organized himself. He's just not there yet. And it's, it's okay.
It's a work in progress. It's okay.
Excuse me. Exactly. So that would be my biggest piece. Calendar with yourself, calendar with your kids. Don't forget to put anything in there. Live by it.
Yeah, no doubt. We keep a massive calendar in our kitchen. It is a huge, actual calendar, because we have tried digital calendars and for myself and my husband that collaborate and coordinate, but it's I sometimes forget to look at the joint calendar or don't put things in, and that's not okay. Yeah. So, but it didn't work also when it came to like the kids, right? Because like at this point, my son's almost 11. So he needs to be mindful also of what is going on in his life. And he loves the big calendar because he just goes into the kitchen and at breakfast in the morning, he's looking at the calendar. What do I have next week? And he loves to be aware of what is coming up for him, which I think is a really good habit to have that he has right now, because a lot of ADHD kids don't have that habit, and he does,
Very
which
true.
I really love that about him.
You did well, Mama. Good job.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. He hasn't been diagnosed with ADHD. We haven't had him assessed, but like there are definite like I have ADHD and I know what that looks like. So I would say that like he definitely has some of the key traits of, but also he is a boy and they are also bananas a lot of times,
Yes,
right?
they are.
And they're way, not to give, there are some boys who are very responsible and very mindful of everything, but like most boys that I have encountered and have mom friends that have boys, they're a lot less responsible than girls of the same age. Like girls bring home their water bottle. Like boys, it's God knows
Leave it.
where.
Yeah.
They just leave it.
Mean, my son, the one that doesn't have ADHD, he does that all the time. So I mean, yeah, it's normal for kids.
It's just a normal thing for them to lose things.
Yeah.
So what would you say about managing parental stress? How have you like managed your stress when it comes to dealing with feeling overwhelmed with dealing with your child's ADHD and I know you have multiple children that have like you have one child with sensitivity, etc. But like how are you managing the overwhelm with that? Like what are your tips and like how do you self-care?
So this is a really funny question to me because sometimes I will come to this and I'll be like, I don't know.
Yeah, I got nothing for you.
I mean, I would say honestly, one of the things that I would recommend, those that exercise, don't forget to do it. Do it first thing in the morning. I am not great at exercising. I need to. I know I got to take care of myself.
But especially if you're a mom with ADHD, it's even more important that you exercise because you need the dopamine hit in the morning. You need that endorphin rush.
You do, and to keep yourself calm. And to help yourself just to be like, okay, I got this. It brings that joy to you, that piece of joy to you. For me, it's meditation on the word of God. I am a Christian. I am God-fearing. So for me, that's what it is. And the first thing in the morning, I got to get my dose of Jesus. So I will meditate on his words and it just brings me joy. It's something that brings me joy. But another thing that really helps me when I'm getting way overwhelmed and I'm feeling that overwhelm where it's to the point that I'm just going to be like, if I don't do something, I'm going to explode. Right. And yes, all of us get there. I will just simply say, tag you're it to my husband. And I do this with him too, where I'm just like, go, bye. I can see you're getting overwhelmed. You need to go. Yeah. For him, it is exercise. Go exercise. For me, it's like, I need to go get out in nature.
Yeah, nature's a great one. Love that.
That just brings me a sense of calm and peace. And just, I've always loved nature. The wind blowing in my face, going on a walk, going kayaking, going, to the beach, getting in the ocean, because we all know the ocean has some amazing benefits to it, and with its magnesium and all the different minerals, so good for your soul.
100%.
And I have obviously the awesome ability to live close to the ocean. Not everyone does.
Which is amazing.
But just getting out and going through nature, I think for anyone actually, and grounding, right? That's another really big one. I like to ground. I put my bare feet on the ground. Some people are really grossed out by that, but for me,
I love the barefoot ground. It's great. You connect yourself and root yourself to the earth. It's good. I love that. I love that suggestion.
Yes.
Actually, one of the things that I did this past fall was I went to the park with the leaves under a tree and literally sat and meditated with no shoes on, because even though it was cool, it made me feel grounded, and it like was just a very good like nature experience, right? And just experience of connectedness. So I want to ask you this question. So you have been an ADHD coach. Now that you've launched this hub, you'll be coaching as an expert, obviously, on your hub. What can, if our moms want to reach out to you for coaching, support, and help with that for themselves or their ADHD child, would a session like look like with you? Like, well, how do you typically do something like that? What can they expect?
So, yeah, absolutely. So the first thing I'd want you to do is go take the Strengths Finder assessment, which you will find on my page.
Great.
Because I'm going to want to know what either your strength is, or if you're a mom, what your child's strength is, or both, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then from there, we're going to go ahead and we're going to work through what those strengths look like in you, and we're going to hone in on that.
Great.
And then you get to, at that point, really just learn, okay, this is my strength, this is my child's strength, one or the other, whichever one it is. And we get to work through that together. But really, the parent, they know their kid, right? And they know who. So I just get to work with you and just say, let's pull this out. Let's do strategy. Let's figure out what's the next step to help you to get to that higher level of where you want to be with your family.
Right.
Like, what do you want your family environment to look like? What do you want? What goals do you have for your child or yourself? And let's get those goals hit.
I love that.
So a lot of strategy. And one other really big piece that I don't want to forget to mention is I am not just focused on just the child with ADHD. Like I said, I have 5 children. They're all affected.
What that looks like for mom and for the other kids in the family and the father or partner, whatever that looks like.
Yes, exactly. So I work with the entire family in mind.
Right. That's great. I love that. The holistic approach. That's what we do here at the Motherdrive is we approach wellness holistically on my end. So I can fully appreciate that. Okay, let's talk about future outlook. So what advancements do you see or like changes that you hope to see in the understanding of ADHD and the management of it in the future? Like, is there anything that you're seeing coming down the pipeline where you're like, okay, I know that's going to be a key thing, or here's what I'm developing or I'm working towards?
I can't speak to what I am developing and working towards because one of my biggest proponents when it comes to ADHD is the negative stigmas that come with it. Oh, your child has ADHD? Oh, I'm sorry. That must be really tough. And for me, it's just like, it's really not. Like, yeah, there's moments, of course, but isn't there for you with your child? It's just,
it's so interesting that you say that because I have thought about this deeply. And I've thought the way that the expectations are for the world that we live in, like ADHD people are just not a match for that particular expectation that is so like has been so concrete for so long, right? So we're not working in the regular school system as well, or we're not working in the workplace as well. But I will tell you this, I worked for a Scandinavian company, a technology company, and Scandinavians just have a different approach. They were like, if you are neurodiverse, please let us know. We'll have a conversation about that. And we'll talk about what your work schedule looks like. What are your needs? How can we help you? How can we support your best work outcome? And that was the most refreshing approach to work I have seen ever. I mean, this company is like, they were amazing. And I only left to launch my own business, but that was so refreshing. Like, what can we do for you? How can we be mindful of this in our workday? Like, at what period do you like glaze over in a meeting? Like where you're not engaged, you know what I mean? You've tapped out mentally, right? So let's not have. And a lot of people were neurodiverse where I worked, and they would say, after the 40-minute mark, like we are just tapping, moving on. So you need to like take a break,
wrap it up,
or wrap it up, right? And that's where we're at.
And it's funny, but That's amazing. And that is something I'd like to see. So what I'm getting at is that we want to change what the stigma looks like for ADHD. We want to change the world's view of ADHD because really, like I said, ADHD is just a different way of thinking. It's just a different wiring of the brain. But there is so many amazing attributes to it. Like you get to work in the jobs that are high urgency jobs, and you're needed. You problem solve differently than anyone ever would, and you come up with problems often quickly. And outside the box solutions.
I will say this as an ADHD person. The thing that I see is like the amount of creativity I have and ideas and like all of that stuff that you just mentioned, like managing like acute crisis. I'm very good at that. Like those type of like I like thriving under certain pressures and things like that. The amount of urgency, like you said, all that stuff is really cool. Also very creative. Just so many, like often you think so differently about things that you're often a trailblazer because you move in directions that other people haven't necessarily, figured out.
Look at the greatest
beautiful thing.
Yeah.
And highly intuitive.
Yes. Like, I mean, you got Einstein had ADHD, and Bill Gates has ADHD. Yeah. There is so many highly successful people out there who have created some amazing things, that have ADHD. It's just you tapping into that strength. And that is what I am wanting to build more of in this world. We're also working on a program that we're putting in schools, but it's not just going to be for schools. Like I talked about earlier with that dream team and building that, we're working at having this as a, almost like a circular program where it like has teachers, the therapists, the parents, the kid. Everyone is involved. Everybody knows what's going on. Everybody knows how we're working with this kid and how we can get him to or her to success. So that's another thing. It's just a little bit more inclusive programs for that, more education for what ADHD actually is, how the brain actually works, rather than focusing so much on the behaviors. Let's focus on the strengths and really pulling those out in the kids, because that is going to make a difference for our future. Because right now where we're going with this and where we have been, we have what we just talked about, more people just down on themselves. They don't believe in themselves because they've heard all those negative things spoken over them. So they're just stupid. That's what they feel. And that is not true. So more understanding, more awareness, more advocating, but also for the teachers who are out there working their behinds off trying to help these kids.
Resources.
Staying afterwards, tutoring. That's something down the pike that we are planning to really build out to where exactly we have a non-for-profit working it guys, to where
that's great.
We have more bodies in the classroom to help the teachers when they need it, because they can't do it always in the moment, but also when they're out there tutoring, because we're building a reading and writing program too, specifically for neurodivergence. But when they're tutoring, to actually be paid to tutor under this nonprofit. Not here yet, but we are working it. So
I love hearing all of the things that you're about to like be working toward deploying. I think it's wonderful. And I know that I haven't mentioned this, but you and I are going to be working together. Yes. And I'm starting at the end of June. So I will be a part of the hub. As my audience knows, I'm a mindfulness meditation expert, and I've been doing it for many years. So I'm excited to open up the conversation and educate ADHD people on how they can meditate and become mindful, and that it doesn't look always the way that the conversations have been had surrounding this. It's not. I know we have a very difficult time sometimes sitting still and things like this. There's different ways to be mindful. I'm excited to have this conversation because mindfulness and meditation are such an amazing tool for people with ADHD. It's an incredible thing to be able to tap into in moments of emotional dysregulation and things like this that happen more frequently to ADHD people. So I'm really looking forward to leaning into this platform with you and having these conversations with our members. I'm really looking forward to that. I'm excited.
I'm excited to have you, Katie. It's a privilege just because exactly that. I know how important mindfulness is, and just really having that as a part of the daily life for ADHD. I'm excited for this hub. My heart is definitely for the families, for the adults, and everybody. That's why I built it. So it's just come join us. StrategicU
Yes,
community.com.
everyone.
Yeah.
Please. And so tell me, once again, I just want to thank you for coming on the show, but I want you to share one last time your Instagram handle so people could follow the conversations and follow
Absolutely.
you.
Awesome. So you can find me at Jamie K. Copeland. That's JamiekCopeland. And feel free just to send me a message or anything. I'm here for you. I'm happy to help you out in any way and love on you. My heart
I love this. Thank you so much, Jamie. It has been an absolute privilege to talk with you today and have such an amazing, compassionate conversation about ADHD. So we will sign off. Tune in, people. All right.